All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Inside in Tennis podcast. Mitch Michals here. This show, as always, is part of the Outstanding Believe Network and available wherever you get your shows, Apple, Spotify, you name it. We are into the Australian Open, the first major of the 2026 season. First round in the books. Exciting. A lot of different storylines and match results to get to. Joining me now, and someone I haven't talked to, it's my fault, it's been far too long, but senior tennis writer at Daily Express and the express.co.uk website, Yasmin Syed, on site in Australia. Yasmin, welcome back to the show. Hope you're enjoying what we're enjoying, which is the start of the Australian Open.
It's a pleasure to be back. It is, they call it the Happy Slam for a reason. So, we've been starved of tennis for so long, and now it's all come at once.
Yeah, it feels great that we have tennis back. We've all missed it. It's got that like new car smell where the tennis season's fresh in everyone's mind. You said they call it the Happy Slam. I think they're also starting to call it the Crowded Slam based on what I've been seeing.
Yeah, it is. They've had around 100,000 people for the day and night sessions every day since the main draw started. So it is very crowded. I don't envy the people in the queues waiting to get in because I think they were going halfway out of Melbourne yesterday. But the good thing is, I think, it is crowded, but the grounds are massive, especially for me. You compare it to Wimbledon and everyone seems to be loving it. So
yeah, there's only two instances so far, and unfortunately for the fans of those players, they both lost. But the Eala match and the Fonseca match, it seemed like it was a little overwhelming. I was watching some of the Eala Alicia Parks match, and that seemed like a fire hazard from the outside. There was just so many people on outer court for someone who's already so popular because of where she comes from and what she represents to those people.
yeah, it's really tricky because she's one of those players that, if you might see her and you don't know anything about the fan base, you don't know much about her, you'd think on paper, okay, you put her on an outside court, but there are certain players with certain fan bases that I think that's just not viable. And at least with Fonseca, he was on one of the arenas, but still not a big one. And I think they have learned that when she comes back next year, she will need an arena.
It's crazy, and I understand it because there's a pecking order in the sport on reputation that is, based on what you accomplish on the court, but fan bases don't really care about that. They support their players, and we've seen it. So we'll get to some results right to start us off, but just your thoughts, Yasmin. I mean, I think this is your first Australian on the grounds or one of your first majors covering like in Australia. So how has it been and how have you settled into this tournament?
Yeah, I think this is my first time at the Australian Open in any capacity at the tournament. It's definitely sort of exceeded expectations again. They call it the Happy Slam. You can see why there's so much on offer for fans. I think, whether or not you think it's a good thing, it's almost a tournament that you don't have to watch a single ball of tennis to have a good day out. And if there are people that want to come through the gates and do that, you can really enjoy it. There's kids areas, there's a kids water park, there's concerts, there's the food is from sort of local vendors from famous places around Australia. They've got a Shake Shack pop up. So they've really turned it into this amazing experience that not just watching the tennis is great, but obviously the tennis itself is great. So the whole package is amazing.
It just seems like players, and maybe there is a correlation where it's comforting for certain players. They do well because they just enjoy being there, and that breeds more success, whether it's Djokovic, who's looking great again, or even someone like Madison Keys, who I felt, in the beginning of her match was a little sluggish, but she settled in and realized, okay, I've done well here. I won last year. I do feel like Jannik Sinner, obviously another one. It's not a coincidence in my mind why players just love coming here, and the results add up in result of that. So
Yeah, I think it's one of those slams where you don't have to be a home player to thrive here and make this your second home. And, the fans know their stuff and they really get behind the players. And if they remember a player that maybe had a good run a couple of years ago but hasn't matched that, they will still remember that player and come back and support them.
yeah, they certainly will. A lot to get to in round one. Again, it's early, right? No one wins the slam. They just want to stay alive, survive in advance. But through one match, a lot of different storylines I have written down and observations I have, and I'm looking forward to you expanding upon it, Yasmin. But talk so far, one of the big stories was Novak Djokovic looking as spry as ever at 38 years old. We expected him to beat Pedro Martinez routinely, and he did. But the grounds and the internet and the publications, they've been talking about just how fresh this 38, 39-year-old looks, going on 39 looks. The movement was exceptional. I don't know what he did in the offseason, Yasmin, but he looks fresh as ever.
Yeah, I think it was 72 days or something from that Athens final to his first round match. And the funny thing with Novak is you always back him to win these rounds. But the last couple of years at the AO, I think the first round he's dropped a set or two. And, he really needs to make sure he's not in a position that when he gets to the semi-finals of Yannick and Carlos, he needs to make sure he's played as little tennis as possible. And he really did that. And everyone, I think, you expect the best from him, but at the same time, you don't know what you're going to get. He's nearly 39. He hasn't played in 2, 3 months. There have been times in the past where, he's had early wobbles. So I think people were, to an extent, surprised to see him just fit and firing. And the funny thing is, you rely so much on his backhand, that's going to be a great shot. His forehand was incredible. The serve, I think he's been working with Mark Kovacs. You can see the serve is so effective. So it's amazing how, these athletes at this age still find ways to improve such key shots.
Yeah, Mark Kovacs has been on this show, one of the best in the world at what he does, working with Tiafoe now, got him in tip-top shape. But you're right, that's a good point. Against Lerner, Tien, and Zag Svajda last year at the U.S. Open, didn't look like himself in rounds 1 and 2, and that all adds up at any age, let alone 38 years old. So that was a storyline to watch. Novak looking good. Alcaraz and Sinner weren't tested. We saw Alcaraz win easily, and Sinner won 2 sets against Gaston, got the retirement. But Yasmin, is there anything you're looking at or maybe trying to observe and take from their early matches as they gear up for the latter stages?
I think the Carlos match was a bit of a typical Carlos sort of 3 out of 5 match where he still gets it done in 3 sets like you expect, but there might be a tiny lapse or a lull where, in the second set, he's made to work for it a bit more. Adam Walton obviously played really well in that set as well, I think, anyway. And, he's got the home crowd behind him. But yeah, so for me, I think it was what you always expect of a Carlos match. There might be a sort of 5 minutes that he'll go a breakdown, or it might look like it's getting close, but he'll still come out of it. And then with Jannik, also just what you come to expect from Jannik, which is dominance and looking sharp until obviously, unfortunately, it had to end the way it did.
I've noticed I was going to say disturbing, but a trend that's unfortunate to say the least, that maybe you've noticed too, Yasmin, that these players playing against Sinner and Alcaraz are basically having to just exert every resource in their body until it stops working, because that's what it takes to compete against these guys, where they could hang as long as they can, but eventually they just go into shutdown, and that just shows you how fit these guys are, let alone exceptional at tennis.
Yeah, and over the 5 set format as well, that's heightened, isn't it? And it's been that case even when players used to play Novak, let's say. They would go all out to maybe win a set 7-6, and then the next set is 6-1 because they have used up every fibre of their being trying to make it competitive in that set. Or even if they lose it 7-6, let's say like Adam Walton did, it's really tough after that to pick yourself back up when you've used everything you can and it's still not enough.
Certainly is the case. Competing against the top 2 men is going to be a tough task for anyone. We'll get to the men here in a second as we expand further, but I want to switch to the women because we'll get to the contenders. But I think a lot of us in the tennis world, Yasmin, I'm curious if you agree, we're kind of looking at the women's with an exceptional level of optimism for this tournament because of the depth of the top 10 recently. There's so many storylines. There's so many contenders. We know it starts with Sabalenka, but do you agree that where we are, it's such a good place with women's tennis where we have this bona fide top 8 to maybe even 10, 12 with other contenders, that it makes for just great storylines and epic matches?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's really exciting. I think some people might attempt to talk it down and say, oh, nobody's emerged as the one true compared to Sinner, Alcaraz, Djokovic, and the big 3 before them. But actually, it's just the fact that a good group of 5 to 10 of them have such a high level, and that translates every time they play each other. So she might not be, top 3, she may not have won a slam, but Pegula plays incredible matches against Sabalenka, and you get really excited to see those matchups as the tournament goes on if they all get there.
Yeah, I would say that it's gearing up. We'll see if Sabalenka has a great year. We talked about it a bunch where she won 1 major last year, made all these finals, but it feels like an underwhelming year. Like if you asked Aryna how her year was last year, she'd say I didn't do enough, which is crazy given all she accomplished. But she starts the year off great, wins the title, and when she's on the court playing her best, I don't see a better player given the strength, given what she's added to her body, Yasmin, and given how much she enjoys playing.
Yeah, that's the thing. She's one of those players, again, that loves it here, and this is almost like a home tournament for her, even if she has no connection. She has such good memories here, and they love her so much, and they remember when she was younger, but obviously they remember her wins, and coming back here for her, I think just gives her something that she probably doesn't get at other tournaments.
Yeah, I would say looking at the pecking order, right? Because you have Aryna Sabalenka at the top. You know, Coco, Gauff, and Iga, they've been in the top three for so long. There's questions for both, and I think they're completely different questions, but they're fair ones. For Iga, we're going into a tournament where she's trying to complete the career slam. But there's some questions given how she's looked at the start of the year, given the fact that she's lost a couple times to Coco recently. And then we added another variable to the mix, Yasmin not being happy with her on kit in the first match. That was a little frustrating to say the least, but she does what she does in round one, and that's win straight sets.
Yeah, I think her, Coco, and Sabalenka, they all sort of had, they still won through their opening matches, and the scoreline may look simple, but it wasn't that simple for any of them. So I think for all three of them, at least they can look to each other and say it wasn't just me. But in Iga's case, yeah, I think it's difficult for her because the United Cup, first of all, I love, but it's really strange if you're in the position Iga is in, where they won the tournament as a whole, but she came in having lost her last couple of matches. So it must be a really difficult dynamic to sort of bounce back from and know where you're at coming into the Oz Open.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching Coco play, seeing how her serve holds up. Also, we know how well she moves. She's always been someone I feel like shines instead of struggles, rather shines in the chaos. And if the conditions get hot and sweltering, which I haven't really checked the weather, but that seems like it would be up Coco's alley. Like with how fit she is, she'll play a day match when it's 100 degrees out Fahrenheit, no problem whatsoever.
Yeah, almost the opposite extreme if you look at last year's Roland Garros final and all the wind and all the chaos there, and she came out on top of it and Sabalenka couldn't manage it. And it would be the same here in reverse. I think she's very comfortable in any conditions, but especially the heat with where she's from. And I think we are definitely due some hot days, whether or not, it's early doors, whether or not the forecast actually lives up to it. There are some hot days coming, and it is a very mixed bag. And there are certain players that can just turn it on no matter what the conditions are, and she's one of them.
So paying proper respects, as we just did, to the top three. After that, I want to make it dealer's choice. Is there a woman that you have your eye on next? Like, okay, we know who the top three have been in the sport, but who's lurking next as that next one up to maybe make a deep, serious play here?
I mean, it now almost feels like a cheap answer, but Anisimova.
Yeah, it does, but it seems like it's the right answer. It seems like it's right, not just because of how she won round one, how she finished the year, Yasmin, but also what she's added to her game. Her fitness level seems up. And another player that enjoys being out there, given all she's been through, she has the weapons that can compete with anybody, and that includes the players that we just mentioned. So I'm curious, as I know you are, to see how she handles the expectations. The only difference between this year and last year is she's not sneaking up on anybody anymore.
Yeah, and I think the thing for Amanda was going to be that she did finish the year on such a high, and then some people don't like the off-season coming at that point because it breaks their momentum, but she's actually somebody that really enjoyed having that time off with her friends and family. She really got to work in the gym, on the court, and it's already translated early this year. So I'm really glad that she hasn't had a lull off the back of that momentum almost being cut by the off-season, and I think nobody would have wanted to be in her quarter and semi of the draw, because that, it becomes almost a bit like when you used to have the big three and you used to look that I've got to get through this one and then this one and then this one. And now Amanda's sort of that next person down where you look down the draw and you're like, I may not have Coco till the semi or the final, but I've got Anisimova a round or two before that, and I don't want that.
Well, it's pretty funny when you say that, because I agree. I think players probably want that player who you mentioned. It's Anisimova, it was somebody else before. It'll be somebody after, to get seated higher so they're where they should be, so they're not just floating around in their section. I would say it's like the same with Rybakina, right? Like she had that year coming up last year, winning the WTA finals, finishing the year strong, I should say. Now it's like she's where she should be. She's rising up the ranks again, because it's another player when she's serving well, you just don't want to see. Like that's someone you just never want to see on the other side of the net, because if she has a hot heat check serving day, there could be no answers.
Yeah, and I think especially in these conditions, when that serve is on, it is going to be very difficult to have answers. And if and when we get to the stage that all this lot start playing each other, there's no almost guarantee that your top three is going to beat them.
The other name that I think, and it might be jumping the gun, it might not be. It's funny how you never know when it's the moment. But Viktoria Mboko looks ready, Yasmin. Like she looks like she's ready to keep leveling up, how she's been playing, how she's been building on success, and even on failure, how she's bounced back from. Do you think she's at a point now where 2026, even, she'll be a real, legit slam contender?
I think so. I've been really impressed with how she won that title in Canada, and then she had a bit of a lapse, but then she brought it up again at the end of the year, and that would have been so important for her to end the year on a high, go into the off season, have a good preseason, and now she looks like she's picking up where she left off. She looks like she's really enjoying it here. I think she's playing doubles with Iga Jovic, which that's a great partnership, and I think they're the two of them are very quickly winning over fans here that are realizing these girls are the next
Yeah.
thing. And if she can keep on that path, there's no reason why she shouldn't be getting to the quarters and start being in the mix.
Yeah, they got to. Well, I wonder how long that partnership's going to last before they're slam contenders and
Yeah.
rivals. Like, are they going to play? Because that could happen. I like Iga Jovic as well. I think there's a lot there. But yeah, and Mboko, how she's played and what she's done. And again, it's right, handling expectations. It's one thing to have success when no one expects it. But, she has a lot of fans now. And that's a heavy burden to hold, right? Where people expect you to win and ask questions when you don't win. But maybe that says a lot about the team around her, but I've been very impressed with how she's handled it.
Yeah, it can go one of two ways, and they're two very opposite extremes where it can be really difficult for someone to handle. She seems to be thriving with it, and I agree. She must have the right people around her. She's got a good head on her shoulders, and you're almost glad when it happens to someone that knows how to handle it and can shine with it. And it's really lovely to see her just taking it in her stride.
All right, we got Yasmin Syed here on the Inside in Tennis podcast talking about the Australian Open, round one in the books. Round two coming up. It's going to be exciting for an entire 2 weeks, so don't miss out on any of the action here. But as we move along here on the podcast, Yasmin, I have to ask you about another thing that happened last night that kind of sent shockwaves, and it was Naomi Osaka from start to finish, walking out on court as she did in the kit, a separate conversation, and then a match that was in the balance for a lot of it. I mean, Ruzic played phenomenal. It was 6-4 in the third. Naomi wins, but starting with how she walked out to how she finished, what's your analysis of what we saw from Naomi Osaka last night?
Well, I think Naomi did an Instagram Q&A a couple of weeks back, and I remember she got asked about something to do with what her kit vibe is this year, and she said it's go big, and I don't think even I could have expected that. But I do love that. I love the way she plays with it, and I think if you're going to have, it's very rare now to get a really good apparel deal, I think. And if you're going to have a Nike deal that lets you do literally whatever you want, no matter how extreme it is, take it and run with it. So I really enjoy seeing it. Some people might not. Yeah, and it gets tennis in other places. And, even when her results haven't been there, but they are now, it's still everyone wants to know what she's wearing. It's going to be in Vogue. It's going to be in all these different outlets, and it gives tennis another platform one way or another.
Yeah, well, I would never be one to be a fashion critique. That's just not my lane, so I kind of stay in it. But I will say this, looking good and playing good, as long as those things are aligned, I think it's great. There is, you bring it up too, right? There's expectation. I'm glad she won for her sake, because when you make a bold statement like that, you're expected to back it up, and she did. And it was a tough match. I think that's maybe a good sign for her going forward, is that she feels confident, Yasmin, that she's going to be around a while. She started to put together clearly her best year since coming back to the tour after becoming a mother. She's not here just to make fourth rounds. She's been abundantly clear about that. The goal is to get back to the winner's circle and hoist slam titles. Whether or not she can do that remains to be seen, but she's putting herself in position with performances like that.
Yeah, it was difficult for her because she ended last year so well, and then she got injured, and I think she was sick coming into Australia in the United Cup as well. But I think it's almost good for her to have a match like this early on, because maybe she's not had the tennis she's wanted from the Asia swing into the beginning of this year. So at least she's been able to dig herself out of trouble. She's been able to show to other people and herself that when it's getting tough, when she's down, she has the confidence and she has the experience to lift herself and win.
You mentioned the offseason. We've discussed it a few times, but if you don't have that perfect, ideal setup, it can be tough. You could almost feel like you're playing catch up the whole season. And a name that I'm going to be monitoring to see, because she didn't have one, was Emma Raducanu, right? Like, she didn't have a proper offseason, battling some injury stuff. Wins her first round match, gets Potapova, who survived in her first round match. Then it's going to get a lot tougher, obviously. But Raducanu's someone, given all that she's done and all that she's expected to do. It's going to be interesting to see how she handles not having that proper offseason.
Yeah, I think it's difficult for Emma because she built a really good team, and I think that's one of the really important things for her is building a team of people she can trust and then having them around long term. And she did that with her coach before, and then he had to walk away for other reasons, but took her a while to get this team in place. And it must be really difficult when you're so excited to have that real preseason and you can't have it because of injury. And she said it herself, she wasn't really playing points until she came to the United Cup. But I think what's really important for her is that first round she was able to show herself that it looked really worrying there at the beginning, and even though she's not got much tennis in her legs, she's now that player that can still draw on some experience and come through it.
It'd be Sabalenka round 3 if all holds up, so that's when it ramps up repeatedly. But wishing Emma the best. Yasmin, any other thoughts on the women? I got some other random stuff down, but anything else stand out to you in your first couple of days on site?
I think the biggest thing was, as I mentioned, sort of Iga, Sabalenka and Coco. It wasn't completely straightforward, and the early breaks and some of these long juice games. But yeah, I think it's just the fact that nobody is, well, I guess Amanda, but from that group, it's not an out and out 6-love. I also, Maddie Keys was one that really caught my eye because obviously we're all looking at the score and she's 4-love double breakdown and we're thinking the defending champion is going to go out, and she, again, another one that managed to draw on her experience to come out of it. But what I really liked from Maddie was the honesty that at the end, she said that she was thinking all year about this moment of coming back as a defending champion, and all the preparation you can do, you are never prepared. It goes out the window the second you step on that court. And she was really nervous. And it's nice that she was honest about that. And it's good that she's now gotten over that hurdle and can settle into the tournament.
Yeah, her opponent, her colorful opponent, played very well, which was good. But Keys is just so tough in those settings too. Like even when she wasn't playing her best, she saved a lot of match points last year. She won a lot of close matches that were in the balance. Yeah, and the other stuff that I had too, I mean, just quickly, Mirra Andreeva surviving against a tough draw in Dana Vekic. That's a match where last year could have gone south fast given what happened in some of Andreeva's losses. So that was impressive. We did see some seeds go out round 1, which is to be expected, especially with the depth of the game. Alexandrova out, Emma Navarro out, Marta Kostyuk injured, and she loses. So it wasn't completely clean all the way through the seeds, nor will it ever be.
Yeah, and I think Andreeva, she has a brutal draw. And she's just come off the back of winning a title, which gives you a boost. But I feel like you often find that people that play and go deep that 1 week before the AO, it's quite difficult to turn it on when everyone's been in Melbourne for an extra week and they've been on the courts. And yeah, I agree. A few months ago, or even, it depends, I guess, like on the day, you never know if it could go south for her. And you can see that, again, speaking about the off-season and the work people have done, she must have done a lot of mental work. And it was really impressive to see her just take that draw on its chin, come back from a difficult position. And she's going to have to do that again against Sakkari, because Maria she looked very good at the United Cup.
She did. And she hit probably the shot so far of the tournament, that return winner. That was ridiculous. Also, to shout out somebody, Venus Williams, putting on a great performance, sadly losing it to Olga Danilovic. No shame there, but that was exceptional too. Back to the men's side, though, there's still a lot of storylines and things to discuss. I guess we can start in a couple of different places, but the veteran class in their final year, we still have Stan in the tournament, but Monfils lost to Australian Dane Sweeny. I wasn't expecting to talk about that match so early, but it was high quality for Sweeny, a guy who was competing against a fan favorite in Monfils on home soil, who had gone through so much to get that match is a moment for life.
Yeah, and it's so impressive the way he's handled it, because I think Monfils was serving for the second set. So for Sweeny to take on that occasion, to be able to come back, to silence it, I was really impressed. I agree. You don't think, there are certain matches that you don't realise they're going to be as good as they are until you're watching them. And it was a really special moment, I think, and when you see a legend and a veteran of the game go out like this, it's nice when it happens to a home player almost, because it still means that there's a good story progressing and the fans can then get behind that person as well. And I was just really impressed with how Sweeny handled the occasion.
Monfils means so much to the sport. I'm glad we're going to have a year to say goodbye, but you could tell he's older now, doesn't have the juice that he had, maybe the best athlete to ever grace a tennis court. So glad we were able to see at least one more match in Australia for him. Still going with Stan, though, as I mentioned. Beats Laszlo Djere, the crowd, the adoring crowd behind him. We'll see. And there might be an opportunity in this draw to keep it going for Stan, who played so well in the United Cup. Didn't get a lot of wins there, but we're pushing some elite guys. I think, weirdly enough, Yasmin, that might be a difference maker for him. He's played some of the very best right out of the gate in 2026.
Yeah, he's had a sort of difficult last year or so where he gets into some 250s, or he still gets into the big tournaments because he is Stan Wawrinka, but he can just never come out on the right side of those matches. But at the United Cup, they were top players, and he was giving them a lot of trouble. And I think the United Cup, the team atmosphere and the way he was cheering for Belinda and Jakob Paul, and just, I think they all gave each other such a boost, and they all seem to have carried it into here. You know, Belinda looked amazing, and I think it was really important for Stan to have United Cup as his first tournament of the year. Like you said, it's the opportunity to play those top players, and also, even if you lose your opening match at United Cup, you still have another one, and then they had a lot more because they went all the way to the final. So he did the right thing in picking his AO preparations, and it's paid off. And I mean, they just love him here, and you can see he's absolutely loving being with that crowd one last time for as long as he can.
It seems from a distance that he's the most open, and the guards are coming down. Like, he's not as reserved anymore, which is, hey, when you make that decision, right, I'm going to retire, there's a peace that comes with that. There's no more thinking about it. I've just decided this is it, and I'm going to enjoy it. So I'm happy to see Stan, a true legend of the game, future Hall of Famer, enjoying his final run.
Yeah, the thing with Stan is, you know, I think he said in his pre-tournament press that he could keep going, but he wants to retire on his own terms. And he's had so many injuries in his late 30s that you don't want to risk it. And I think there's a sense of calm when you decide to make that decision for yourself rather than letting an injury do it for you. And then it means you can truly enjoy your final year rather than battling injuries, rather than having to worry about whether you'll hold up in a tournament.
There's a lot of players and people, I should say, on the outside that are looking at Daniil Medvedev, Yasmin, as someone that could bounce back, given how he started the year with the title, how he looks fresh, new haircut and everything, whatever you can say. But he looked interesting in the first match, right? It was going so well. It was teetering a little bit against De Jong. He was starting to get frustrated, but he battened down the hatches, hit an insane winner on match point from that deep return position. The old Medvedev appears to be coming back. Are you buying him as a major factor in this specific tournament?
Yeah, like I would see him getting to maybe beating some of the seeds above him. Can't really see him beating Carlos Yannick Novak, but everyone else that's ranked, you know, well, I guess Zverev is 3, but outside.
Right, I guess it's more of like can he get to like a semifinal spot? Like, we know who the top 2 players are, but given his draw and given the players that are in his way, I think it might be reasonable that there's an opportunity for Medvedev, who's playing his way back into that single seed top 10 form.
I think so, because also when you look at his head-to-heads with some of the other people who are ranked higher than him, they're still good, and it's, you know, it's a very even playing field when you get below those top 2. And I think the US Open last year was a massive turning point for him, and it made him reevaluate obviously his team, but I think you could see in his first round match he just doesn't want to let his emotions get to a place where he can't control them or it starts affecting his tennis. And I've been really impressed with how he's handling some tough situations since then, and it translated in that first match. And obviously having the title coming in gives him a massive boost, and there was so long that he didn't have a title as well. They're now all coming at once, so that also must be a big help coming into a slam.
How does he keep winning titles in new cities? That's what I don't understand. Like, he finds a way to never win the same title twice, but keep racking them up. It's pretty crazy. We've got a few different upsets to get to. There's some unfortunate seeds that have gone. Brutal for the Canadian Felix Auger Aliassime. He finished the year so strong in 2025, but against Nuno Borges, who's a very, very fit and very tough player, had to retire. Cramps, said it was the worst experience with that in his whole career, Yasmin. It was brutal for him to go through, looking like it was going his way after set 1. But for Felix, it's a setback after so much positive momentum. Just brutal news.
Yeah, with Felix, he's another one who had a really good end to the year, and you don't know what's going to happen when he goes into the off season. Does he lose momentum? He didn't look at his best at the United Cup, and he came here and you thought he was back on track when he wins that first set, but it was really difficult to watch. And initially, I think I couldn't tell whether or not it was an injury, and he came after and he sounded really gutted that that had come at that point in the tournament. He didn't understand why he was cramping so early in a tournament. He said it was the first time in years, and normally he can take a good hard look at his preparation and see where it's come from. But on this occasion, he couldn't really see where it's come from. So hopefully for him, he can find the answer soon, because he found some really good tennis at the end of last year.
Yeah, that was a tough one. I mean, we know Borges has got a pretty good record against top players, a sneaky good one, but shows you best of 5 format, right? There's no substitute with Wes, with the slams being the only place you play it now. It's really, really tough. It's that same thing, right, Yasmin? Like, it's no sport like tennis. You go from an off season, the shortest off season ever, to a best of 5 for a slam title. It's just running right out of the gates.
Yeah, it's really difficult. And I think this year, people don't look as fresh. And I think that is because the off season is getting shorter. And if you want to have a proper holiday, see your friends, see your family, then the amount of tennis work you're doing is limited, and you're playing later into the year. You might have been carrying an injury then. It derails your preseason. It's quite difficult. And I don't envy them coming straight into this sort of format.
No, and you raise a good point. There's no substitute for physical fitness. With the depth of both tours, the men's tour and best of 5, especially for this conversation, the depth is so strong. We had another result last night that sounds shocking on the surface, but if you dig layers, it's not. Eliot Spizzirri beats Joao Fonseca in 4 sets. Spizzirri has been playing really good tennis. He's been grinding since his American college days, winning the national title at Texas. And he was the better player against Joao Fonseca, who, look, I love Joao. He's great. I know that his adoring fans love him as well, and he's destined for great things. I believe that. But he had been injured, and he admitted as such after the match. He wasn't physically fit enough for this kind of level, which is the worst combination when you play someone like Spizzirri, who's been grinding and been working nonstop. That wasn't as shocking as a result as I think people are led to believe, because of where Spizzirri is, and unfortunately, Yasmin, where Fonseca's health was.
Yeah, first of all, Elliot is my sort of pick for a breakthrough this year. So, he's already proving it. And when you play these college guys, they you have to beat them. They won't hand you a loss. And the difficult thing for Fonseca is he pulled out of a couple of tournaments. He stayed in Brisbane, he stayed in, I think it was Adelaide, to try and train there. But he was very honest about the fact that, okay, the injury is gone, but he's not match fit. And everything you could do on the practice court, everything you could do rehabbing an injury will never prepare you for playing a match. And unfortunately, this just came so soon that he didn't have any matches under his belt.
It really came quickly. I think rest and recharging is going to be good for him. But I like that. Eliot Spizzirri, breakthrough player. I'm a fan, obviously, as a biased American, but also as someone that's watched him play. He is a frustrator out there. He's not going to give you anything, and he's going to stay in it till the end.
Yeah, and these, like the American college players, but also all of them, I think they watch each other have success, and they see Ben Shelton, they see even like a Cam Norrie, and I think it really gives them belief while they're in college that they're doing the right thing, taking that route, taking a little longer. And I can't imagine the sort of environments they play in. And I think it was Ben that was speaking about yesterday the fact that most tennis players, everything revolves around them. But if you're playing college tennis, there might be 10 of you that your coach has to work on. And I think it gives them character, and it gives them grit, and it gives them perspective.
Oh, yeah. Ethan Quinn was on the show a couple weeks ago, and he talked about that thing. He's like, my first match, he went to Georgia. I'm playing at Florida, and I get off the bus, and I'm hearing fans say this about my mom, this about my sister. And it's just, they're prepared for these hostile environments. That's all you can say.
They've been in the real world.
They certainly have. A couple more things with Yasmin Syed, senior writer for the Daily Express, an outstanding tennis journalist, as we talk about the start of the 2026 Australian Open. And as that American Minute continues, I have to group a couple of these guys together, but you have Tommy Paul, Taylor Fritz, Ben Shelton, Frances Tiafoe, the quote-unquote old guard now, even though they're not old, but there's younger Americans coming through. But they all get through. And just a note on a couple of them. Shelton was the one, right, we weren't really sure about. The draw against Humbert was tougher. He didn't, he wasn't fully healthy at the end of 2025 yet. Yasmin, look at how he played yesterday. It was exceptional. He looked like he is the player that has all the tools to maybe push to the top. What was your assessment of Shelton, that match against Humbert, and how it sets up for him having been tested early?
I think, like you said, with Stan playing those top players at the United Cup, it almost helps Ben to get a draw like this early on, because if you can get through it, it gives you confidence. I think he was saying it also helped him realize you have to turn it on immediately. Sometimes, especially being a top 10 player, you might get someone lower down the rankings. You might not feel like you need to turn it on as much in that opening match. And it was clearly very good for Ben to be tested like that. And also Ugo, I think it's difficult for those players who are coming off the back of going deep last week, but for Ben it gave him a lot of motivation and he channeled it in the right way.
Yeah, it's an interesting Australian Open for those top Americans, right? Because Fritz came in a little banged up, was down a little early to Valentin Royer, but rallied, got through, did what he had to do. Tiafoe's playing with a lot of pressure because he wants to keep being seeded. He needs some results here. And then you also had Tommy Paul, who he said against Alex Kovacevic, that was the best serving day he can remember. That was a pleasant surprise, right? Because he was banged up. He didn't finish 2025. And yet here he is in Australia, place of his slam semifinal, looking as spry as ever.
Yeah, and he's another one of those players. He has an actual home slam, and yet he has such good memories here that this probably also feels similar. Obviously, the US Open for the American guys will never be compared to, but this is somewhere where he's got good memories. They know him, and it was a match that you could look at and see an upset happening. And I think if Tommy had lost that, for us in the tennis world, it wouldn't have been that big of an upset. So it's really good to see him healthy again. It shows the importance of taking the time you actually need to work on those injuries.
We got Alex Michelsen, an American, lose to Karen Khachanov in a brutal first-round draw, to say the least. Two just very tough guys went to war out there. Somebody else who's been talked about for maybe making a run at this tournament, given what happened last year, Lerner Tien. He wins against Marcos Giron in 5 sets. Looking at his draw, I know tennis players don't look at their draw, but there's a real opportunity, and it could lead to another matchup against Daniil Medvedev.
That is one of the best rivalries of the last year, and I think it was built that way on the ATP, and I think Daniil spoke about it, and it's true. And so I really hope we get that match. And it's funny because almost a match like that, as we were speaking about Daniil earlier, that could be the thing to make him come unstuck more than it could be to play a Musetti or a Zverev. But for Lerner, I've just, we remember what he did here a year ago, and just to see the year he had, another one a bit like Mboko, that he took that new status and the profile and he ran with it, and he looks so good. He's got a great team around him. He's got good memories here. You would not want to have him in your draw.
Yeah, he certainly wouldn't. That's another player high on the list of players that you don't want to face, would be Lerner Tien, where he is right now. And then also have to give a shout out. Should have mentioned him earlier with the college stuff, but Michael Zhang, 2-time national champion out of Colombia, beat Sebastian Corda. Is able. We got word he is able to keep his prize money, which is good, which is lovely. But he said something so revealing. He's like, "Yeah, I might have been a little more nervous in my college matches than I was playing Sebastian Corda in the Australian Open."
Yeah, and what I love again about the college guys is they play in such difficult environments that actually when they come to this situation, it's probably a pleasure for them to actually get to a Grand Slam tournament. There's no pressure. There's nobody screaming at them in the crowd and saying horrible things. So yeah, it was another great one to see, and I think college tennis is a really good route, and I like seeing people from college tennis have success because it shows other people to take that route if they think it's best for them. And I like that he's saying, he wants to keep studying and he wants to finish, and good head on his shoulders as well.
Well, final notes on the men. We have wins for Musetti, Casper Ruud, who's on baby watch, so that's another added bonus for Casper, which we congratulate him on. And I was a little surprised when you said breakout player Spizzirri. Not that you picked him, but a lot of people might say Sebastian Baez, how he started his year, another big win over Mpechi Perricard in 5 sets.
Yeah, I think one of our Brits, Sinead Cartel, was playing near that match yesterday, and all you could hear was the crowd from Mpechi Perricard and Baez. Yeah, he's on red hot form. It's great to see. He's another person that he's sort of hung around the maybe 30 to 70 mark for a very long time. We all know who he is. When we see his name in the draw, you think that he's going to be a potential tough person for someone to take a set, but he looks unstoppable right now.
Well, I can't wait to see. That was just round one. We have round two coming up. Yasmin, is there any certain matchups you're looking forward to, storylines in round two and beyond as we round this podcast up?
One of the big ones, just because it's today, Andreeva Sakkari is,
Oh, yeah.
given the form that they're both in, Mirra's had, again, a horrible draw, but that, for me, today, it's all eyes on that night session on Margaret Court Arena.
I'm really looking forward to underrated matchup. You have Chen from Indonesia taking on Karolina Pliskova, who beat Sloane Stephens, just back again. Wasn't expecting to see her.
The Pliskova-Stevens match felt like we were in 2017-18 again. It was so amazing to see that in the draw. A few years ago, that should have been the semi-final. But for her, it's been a really long road back. She's one of those that played, I think, maybe some lower ITF 125s last year. But this is her first tour match since that US Open where she got injured. And it's great that she's been able to beat someone that for her is probably a top player. And that's going to be, the crowd for that one is going to be exciting.
Ashlyn Kruger, Madison Keys, All-American Showdown round two. That's a test for Keys. We'll see. And then don't be surprised, my opinion here, if Bouzkova Iga is a little closer than people expect. That is not an easy layup for Iga, so I want to see how that goes.
Marie's a tricky player, isn't she? And the first round wasn't super straightforward for Iga, so that will be one to watch.
On the men's side, anything standing out as we gear up for maybe some showdowns as these seats start running into each other?
I think I'm excited for the Wawrinka match because it feels like an opportunity. And also, it's an opportunity for his opponent because you're having so many players here that may have never won a tour level match that are coming through, and they're the most dangerous because once they get into the second round and they realize, hey, I can do this and there's no pressure on me, that's where things get tricky for who they're playing.
Yeah, that's a good one too. I think there's an opportunity for Stan. It's also like the last hurrah in Australia, so this crowd support's going to be good. Sticking to the Greek theme, how about Tsitsipas Machac round two? Could be a pretty fun one.
Yeah, Thomas obviously full of form, and the fact that he got Dimitrov first round, he's another one that the first round and the second round are blockbusters. Tsitsipas looked good early in the United Cup. Last night there was some concern that he might go out, but he turned it on. Obviously both of them were struggling with some things, but that's going to be difficult for both of them physically.
Yeah, we got Shapovalov, Cilic, Marin Cilic looking amazing in round one. Didn't expect that either. And then I think it's a great place to end. Ben Shelton is who Sweeny plays next. So we're going to get Shelton in that road environment, which I know he thrives in. So that might be the best crowd of round two.
Yeah, that's one where if you're on the ground, you need to make a beeline for that court because you're going to have a great time.
Well, Yasmin Syed, this is always a blast. Thanks for taking time out of your busy day, busy fortnight covering the Australian Open to show up on this podcast. It's always a pleasure. We'll have to do this again soon. Thanks so much for spending some time here on the Inside in Tennis podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
That was Yasmin Syed. This was the Inside in Tennis podcast. We're available on all your podcast platforms. Just go to Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeart, wherever you get your shows, and search Inside in Tennis podcast. Hit subscribe so that every episode's automatically downloaded to your listening device. And if you're so kind, leave a nice rating and a review. And you can watch the video episodes on the YouTube channel at Mitch Michals with our outstanding catalog of guests. We're back in a few days. More Australian Open coverage. The entire tournament's going to be great. For Yasmin Syed, I'm Mitch Michals. Thanks for listening to the Inside in Tennis podcast, and I'll talk to you soon.